Hey there, and welcome to Crochet Therapy. I'm Barbara, your host for this Tuesday episode, the Tuesday Help episode of Help, I Don't Know How to Read Patterns. And so today, it's really Patterns 101. So we're going to go over the basics of reading patterns. Sometimes patterns get a little more complicated than what we're going to go through right now, but this will give you the basis for reading a pattern. So if you're new or if you have been crocheting for a while, but you learned through videos only, this will help you and it will enable you to actually um, make the designs that are only found in patterns. Now, the pattern that I'm going to use today is a free pattern from Yarnspirations, and I'm just going to use this as an example. Obviously, we're not going to go through the pattern. Hey, Melody, good morning. It's good to see you. And so we're going to use this free pattern. And you know how crazy I am about squirrels. And this is a squirrel ornament. So we're just going to use this as an example. It is free if you go to the yarnspirations.com website. And the title of it is Squirrel Ornament. So if you just do a search in there, you can find this free pattern. So let's go ahead and get started on what to look for when you have a pattern. And also, this pattern happens to be 2 pages long. So, and you can see that the design of this is in landscape mode, which I find very helpful because you get more, I know you get the same amount of writing, but I feel I get a better font and more writing when it is written in landscape mode. So this is kind of what I go for or look for unless it's a short pattern. If it's a short pattern, then it really doesn't matter. But this one is a full 2-page. And as you can see this first page, it has a lot of instructions. So let's go ahead and talk about the first thing that you will look at when you are getting ready to read a pattern. And I'm going to pull you down just a little bit more. There we go. And this is a live stream, but it will be available. So that way you can reference this, and others who have not been able to join the live stream will be able to reference this at a later time. So no worries there. Now, the first thing in reading reading patterns 101 is to read everything. Okay. And that doesn't mean certain parts. Obviously, the pattern itself, this part you don't have to read in depth, but we're going, obviously we will skim over that. But the first thing that you want to do is read the intro. And that is going to give you some insight into what this pattern is. Okay. Because when you're doing a pattern and you're looking at a photo, whether it be a full color photo or a black and white photo, depending on how you get your pattern, because some patterns, you can pick up out of a book, or you can pick them up free in the yarn aisle. Sometimes they have those little flyers that have a pattern on them. A lot of times nowadays, though, those patterns even have a link to the website for the free pattern. So we are going to go ahead and look at the intro to this pattern. And basically, it's going to be this section right here under Squirrel Ornament. Hey, PJ, good morning. Robin, good morning. We're going over how to read a pattern. And so on here, it says, go for a natural woodland look this year and add this adorable squirrel to your mantle or tree. So this gives you the idea. So if it can go on a mantle, then you know right away that yes, it can sit flat, which is important to know. okay? Because you might get into working on a pattern and it is not going to sit flat. And if you hadn't read this part, you wouldn't know that. And I know it seems like a little thing, but if you make this whole pattern and you are thinking that you are going to, set it on a shelf because you collect squirrels or, whatever, I'm making up a story here. And you think that you're going to set it up there and then it never sits right or it keeps falling over, you're just going to add frustration and you have hours of work into this thing and it's not going to do what you want it to do. So that is important for you. It says he's crocheted with a nice long tail and has a cute face that's topped with a winter hat. So that's important too, because it does give you the information that it's crocheted. If you went on on the site and you didn't see that it was, let's say up here, it was really knit and you didn't see that, or it was crochet and you were expecting knit, that would be important, right? Yes, that would be important. So anyway, this little intro right here is important to read. The next thing that we're going to look at is the section that says, and usually it says something like this, you will need, or what you will need, or something like that. Good morning, Lori. Good morning. Perfect timing. So right here, if you can see, it has your inspirations, red heart. It has the ball with a crochet hook, and it says crochet pattern, and then it says easy. And that's important because if you are a beginner crocheter, you need to make sure that you are not doing an expert level pattern for a first pattern because it's going to confuse you. You might be able to power through it. You might be able to with some help from friends, but it's going to be a little more challenging and possibly a little more frustrating. So it's always good to go for a pattern that says, that is equivalent to your skill level or one above your skill level. If you are wanting to grow, then absolutely go for that next skill level above where you are. But I wouldn't go, if I just learned to crochet 3 weeks ago, I would not pick up a pattern that says expert on it and expect to have success without much tears and gnashing of teeth. And we certainly don't want to do that. Melody, she made a tiny snail once and had to use pins to keep it standing. Yes. And yes, because it was a challenge. It didn't stand properly for you. And perhaps that little guy wasn't meant to stand properly. Maybe it wasn't your, where you placed the feet or where you placed whatever. Oh, if it was a snail, then it was a circle. So, it can be a little bit misleading. So then the next thing we're going to look at in this what you will need section, and I'm going to show you pretty close, but that has a lot of information on it, and I'm going to go over what it is. So in the what you will need section, it gives you information regarding the yarn. Now, this is going to tell you what yarn they use and what yarn they recommend. They're also going to tell you the colorway of the yarn that they used. And that way, if you want to exactly match this item exactly, then you are in luck because it will not only give you the how much of the yarn you need, it will give you the brand name of the yarn, and it will usually give you, not always, this time it does, it will give you the number of the yarn. So this one is using Red Heart Soft, 1 ball each in 9010 charcoal, and then it has a bold A. Now what that means is when you are in your pattern and reading your pattern, if it says with A and it's a bold A, then that means with that color, okay? So that's your key right there. B is 4601 off-white, and then it goes on to black, toast, true green, guacamole, and wine. and it gives the numbers of those and the corresponding letters. And so then the next thing it gives is the crochet hook. Now this one even happens to give the brand name of the crochet hook that they think you should use. However, you use whatever brand crochet hook feels best in your hands. The thing is, it will tell you the US and the letter dash a number. Now, our crochet hooks today don't always have a number assigned to it, but back in the day, they did. It was like a size 6 crochet hook, a size 7 crochet hook, and it was like that. Nowadays, it has the millimeters and a corresponding letter. So this one says a 4 millimeter and a USG -6. So if you have some very old crochet hooks that you love and adore, and they are your favorites, they may have a 6 on them, corresponding with the G. It may or may not have the 4 millimeter part on them. I'm going to get a little bit of coffee. Because it's early in the morning. We're going to try to do this a little quick, but I can see this part right here is going to, give us a lot of information. So then it tells you that you'll need a yarn needle, a stitch marker, fiber fill, 1 pair of 9 millimeter black safety eyes, a 3-inch length of floral stem wire, and that is optional for the tail. Okay. And then below that, it talks about gauge. And we can talk about gauge later, but this one says 20 single crochets equals 4 inches. Good morning, Anvita. And so 4 single crochets equals 4 inches, and 23 rows equals 4 inches. So if you did 20 single crochets to make a gauge, you would chain 20 or chain 21, because you're going to skip that first chain, and then you will single crochet all the way across, and that should equal 4 inches. And then if you did 23 rows, then that should also equal 4 inches in a single crochet. And so this one says, check your gauge, use any size hook to obtain the gauge. So, I mean, for a little guy like this is an amigurumi. It's probably not necessary for you to check your gauge. However, if you're making a wearable and you want to make sure that your sweater actually fits the way it should, you may want to check your gauge. So then, down at the bottom, it talks about the Red Heart Soft is a 4-weight yarn. Okay, so that's in the intro and what you will need. So we're going to look at this again, and we can see that before we get to the actual pattern, there are other sections that are there waiting for us. So let's talk about the notes section. The notes section is from here to here. So if they're going to give you that many notes, you may want to look at them, even if you are an experienced crocheter and you just want to glance at them. Okay, so, and I'm going to just go quickly over a couple of the notes. Number 1, it says, only small quantities of B, C, D, E, F, and G are needed for this project. So that's good. So what that's telling me as a crocheter is that if I don't have any of those colors, I am going to go to my stash and see what I have that roughly corresponds to those colorways, and I'm going to use, even if I have just a little ball of yarn, or maybe I can go to my scrap stash and look at the little balls of yarn and see if I have something before I run out to the store and buy a whole skein of yarn just for a little tiny bit. So that's going to save me time. I don't have to run to the store, and money. I'm not buying a whole skein of 6 different colors. So that's very helpful. And if I hadn't read that, I may have run to the store. Number 2, it says gauge is not critical for this project. Work tightly so stuffing doesn't show through the stitches. So there's your cue. Work it tightly so that as you stuff it, the stuffing doesn't show through. And don't worry about gauge, because however tightly you crochet is how large that object is going to be, which in this case, it's a squirrel. And number 3, it says for sections worked in continuous rounds, place marker for the beginning of the round and move the marker up. Do not join rounds until instructed to do so. That's important because you want to go ahead and keep going. Where it says round, you are going to keep going in the round, but use your marker so that you know where the beginning and the end of that round is. That's important information. And it's information that would have been shared with you if it had been put in a video. Okay. And then it gives number 4, it talks about changing colors, and it gives you instructions on how to change colors, which is very helpful as well. Okay, so then let's go up to right above that. It talks about stitch, special stitch, and special technique. So usually, if they're talking about a special stitch, or if there's a stitch somewhere in this pattern that is not, let's say, the norm, okay? It's not chain, it's not single crochet or double crochet, it's not something that is very basic. Usually they will give you, the abbreviation for that stitch, and then they will explain it to you. And in this case, they do. The special stitch is SC, the number 2, TOG, which if you have made or if you have crocheted for a while, you would know that that is a single crochet 2 together. So then it tells you how to do it. Insert hook in next stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And that is in parentheses. And then after that parenthesis, it says twice. So what that's telling you is you do that in the parentheses twice, okay? And then there's a comma, yarn over, and draw through all 3 loops on the hook. So that's the instructions on how to do the single crochet 2 together. It's really important. Okay, so when we are doing this project, we are also going to glance through the pattern completely, because you don't want any surprises at the end. That would not be good. So with this, the squirrel body and head section is right here, and then it goes through all of the instructions here, and then more instructions. It has for the nose, the belly patch, paws, feet, ears, tail, hat, and I'm looking through here, and it just gives instructions, crochet instructions and assembly instructions, which is really good. Hey, Gloria. Yes. And parentheses can be hard, definitely. And then at the end of this, it has a section that says finishing, and then it has abbreviations. So let me look at what this finishing says. Okay, and the finishing just says to make a hanging loop. If you wanted to use this as an ornament, it tells you about that. And then abbreviations, it explains that the bold A, the bold B, the bold C, etc., is color A, color B, color C, because they're not going to use that word color. They have to make the pattern as concise as possible so that they're not writing in longhand every single word. That would make a very long pattern. It tells you that a CH, a bold CH, is a chain. DC is a double crochet. SC is a single crochet. SP with an S is space or spaces. ST with or without an S is stitch or stitches. And it gives you some really important information. It says work, it has the brackets, and it explains it. Work directions in brackets the number of times specified. And repeat whatever follows the stars as indicated. So let me see if I can find, okay. That is really helpful. And let's go over, okay, let's go over the asterisk, the star, because our abbreviation said the asterisk or the star equals repeat whatever follows the star as indicated. So on one of these rounds, it says SC in next 8 single crochet. So when we're working that row, we are going to do 1 single crochet in 8 stitches. Excuse me. And then there's an asterisk, a star, and it says CH5. So then we're going to chain 5, SC in next 8 single crochet. So then we are going to single crochet in the next 8 single crochets. Okay, so what we've done here is we've single crocheted in 8 single crochets, and then we chain 5, and then in the next available single crochet, we are going to single crochet in that one and in a total of 8 single crochets. And then the star happens again. And after that star, it says, well, before the star, it says repeat from star once. So what that's telling me is that I am doing this pattern starting at the star, CH5, SC in next 8, 1 additional time. So, and then the next thing it says is change to G and 24 single crochets and 2 chain 5 spaces. So then it says fasten off. So when you have the stars, and then afterwards it's going to tell you how many times to repeat that section. So, and that is according to the abbreviations here. Also, when you have brackets, it also tells work directions in brackets the number of times specified. So let me see if I can find, okay, over here on the nose, on round 3. Round 3, I'm going to try and get that really close. It says, it's in a bracket, 2 SC in next SC. So that's telling me that I'm going to put 2 single crochets in the next single crochet. Okay. And then it has a comma, SC in next 3 SC. So what that's telling me is we're doing 2 single crochets in 1 single crochet stitch, and then in the next 3 single crochet stitches, we are putting 1 single crochet in all of those stitches. Okay, and then there's a bracket and it says twice. So basically what's in those brackets, you are going to follow twice. And then after that, it says 10 SC. Can you see that? Let me see. There we go. Round 3. And then at the very end, it says right here, it says twice, and then a dash, and then 10 SC. I don't want to make you sick with my wobbly hands holding up this pattern. What the 10 SC is telling you is that's how many stitches you should have in that round. So if you're unsure if you've done this properly, or if you're unsure if you are on the right track, pull up your loop, set your hook down, start from where your loop is, and count your stitches backwards until you get back to the loop. And you should have 10 stitches. Okay? All right. So as far as this pattern goes, these abbreviations are telling me to work the directions in brackets the number of times specified. Now, sometimes you'll get a pattern and it will be an intermediate or an expert level, and it may or may not give you these instructions about the parentheses or the brackets or the stars. But usually if there is instructions between brackets, parentheses, or stars, whatever is in that section immediately following, it usually tells you how many times to do that section. And usually it's 2 total or 3 total. It's never just 1, because then they would just keep going straight with the pattern. Okay, so that's going to tell you that you're probably going to have to do that section at least 1 more time. Okay, so let's look at page 1, and I'm going to go to the very beginning. I'm going to get a little bit of coffee. Okay, so the squirrel body and head, it has a note, insert stuffing firmly every few rounds. So as you're going around, it wants you to stuff the stuffing into the squirrel every few rounds. So go up, 3 or 4 rounds, stuff some more stuffing really nice and tight. And I think that the reason that they're giving you this instruction is because the body and head are obviously one piece, which is so helpful. So helpful. Okay. So it's telling you with A, and that's a bold capital A. And do we remember what that means? That's with our color A. It says make an adjustable ring. Now, adjustable ring can be also called a magic ring. And guess what? Up here in special techniques, it tells you how to make an adjustable ring. Now, if you are reading this instruction and you've never made one before, especially if you've never made one before and you are a newbie crocheter, this may sound like Greek. So what you may want to do is go to YouTube, look up magic ring, or sometimes look up adjustable ring or look up magic ring, and look at that instructions and follow that if this is not making sense to you. So anyway, you're going to start with an adjustable ring or a magic ring, and then it says round 1. Okay, this is not telling me row 1 because we have made an adjustable ring. So obviously we are going to work in the rounds. Round 1, right side. What that's telling me is that as I'm doing this, I am going to keep this side to the outside because that's the right side. I'm not going to work from the inside. I'm going to work from the outside. So make sure that your work turns up, not in, okay? And right side, it says work 6 SC in ring. So that's telling you to use that ring as a stitch and do 6 single crochets in that ring. It says do not join. So once we do that, we're not going to join to the stitch to make a circle, because remember, we're working in the round, so we're not going to join and then restart that row, the second round. And it says work in continuous rounds, spiral. And so that's basically telling you you're going to be doing this. It's a helpful visual, okay? And so then it says dash 6 SC. So what that's telling you is it told you to work six single crochets in that row. And at the end, you should have 6 single crochets. Well, that round was easy, wasn't it? Round 2, work 2 SC in each SC around, dash 12 SC. So that's obviously an increased row. So in each single crochet, work 2 single crochet, 2 SC in each SC around. So we're just going to double our single crochets. So that one is easy, right? Yeah. And so then with round 3, it starts with the brackets. So we're starting with some brackets. We know something's going to happen here, right? So round 3 in a bracket, it says 2 SC in next SC. Okay, that's easy. So in the next single crochet, we are going to put 2 single crochets in that next single crochet. And then there's a comma, SC in next SC. So single crochet in the next single crochet. And then another bracket. And then right after that, it says 6 times. So we're going to do everything in that bracket, 2 SC in next SC, SC in next SC, 6 times. And then there's a dash, it says 18 SC. So that's telling us how many stitches should be in that round when we get done. Now remember the notes where it said for sections worked in continuous rounds, place marker for beginning of round and move marker up as round is completed. Do not join rounds until instructed to do so. So remember, when you're doing these rounds, you're going to have your stitch marker and you're going to mark the beginning of each row, because otherwise you're just going to keep going and you're not going to know where the end of that round is, because trust me, single crochets look the same when you're doing that round. Okay. Now, a way that you can check is to count your rows, count your stitches as you're working your rows. Another way is to count your rows. If you're adept at doing that, you can count your rows and see exactly what round you are on. So that's a good way to follow this pattern. One of the patterns says row 21, round 21, there's a bracket and it says SC2TOG, which we know means single crochet 2 together. And it says comma, SC in next to SC. And then the bracket, the ending bracket is there. And then it says 6 times. And that equals 18 SC. So that round, single crochet 2 together, we're following the special stitch instruction that was given to us up here. And that is actually a decrease round. because you are bringing stitches together. You are making 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So Kathleen, you can read written patterns, but not the picture patterns that are out now. Yeah, I never grew up doing the diagrams, but I am making myself look at them and study them as I'm looking at the written pattern where the diagrams are available so that I can try to train myself to read those as well. But I could not, at this point, rely completely on that. So I'm right there with you. Okay, so the last round of this, round 37 of the body and head, says in brackets SC2TOG, comma, SC in next SC. And then the ending bracket, and it says 3 times. Then after that, it says join with slip stitch to first stitch. 6 SC. So you're starting out with 6 SC, 6 single crochets, and you're ending with 6 single crochets. So that's pretty good. And then there's more instructions on how to fasten off and attach safety eyes. And it even tells you how far apart to attach the safety eyes. 8 STS apart, 8 stitches apart. And then insert more stuffing as needed. And so anyway, and it also tells you to use the photograph as a guide so that you can, make this little guy. So each different section has some really good information. The only thing that you really have to remember is when you see the asterisks or the stars, you're going to look inside that section. And then immediately after that last star or asterisk, it will probably tell you how many times you are supposed to do that, okay? Because there's no reason to have asterisks or brackets or parentheses if you're not going to be repeating that pattern within that section, okay? So that is the basic reading patterns 101, the very basic, okay? And as you get more comfortable, and I wouldn't try to read really elaborate, confusing patterns at first because they can trip up the best of us. And you don't want to get frustrated right at the beginning when you're trying to read a pattern. So if you have never felt comfortable reading a pattern, choose an easy level pattern, preferably something that will be quick, and then you'll be able to have success. Hi, Squish. It is so good to see you. And well, Gloria, I'm glad that you have understood even one small part of this, because I think sometimes we trip ourselves up because we tell ourselves, I can't do it, instead of believing that we can do it. And then even if we make a mistake, don't beat yourself up. That's the thing. That's the key. Don't beat yourself up. Just say, oh, I learned what not to do. Right? What not to do. Good morning, Linda. It's good to see you. And Nikki, it's good to see you. Kathleen. And I hope that I saw some people. Let's see. Watch the videos and write down what you were doing along with them. You know what, Nikki? I did the same thing. I got on a kick of making I got on a kick of making these little sleepy dolls. And I call them sleepy dolls. I can't remember what they were called, but I was making them for my little one. And I wanted to make some more. So you know how I do. I start, assembly lining. And then I have all these assembly lines and I haven't finished them. That's a whip story. But what I did was I would write down the pattern of what she was saying so that I could have something written to look back at, because she didn't offer a written pattern. And a lot of the things that I do, I don't offer a written pattern. I'm not quite comfortable yet doing written patterns because they are like little codes. And so, and then when you do write a pattern, then you need to have it tested before you put it out there. And I'm just not at that point yet, but I'm very comfortable teaching through videos. But I do know how to read a pattern, and it's really not as hard as you think it is if you start easy. So that's the key, I think. Give yourself some grace, start with an easy pattern, and move on from there. So don't worry about knowing everything all at once. Now, some of the intricate stitches, if you can, that's why it's really important to read through first, because what would happen if the special technique was more than just doing a single crochet two together? What if it was one of those special stitches where you had to drop to the row below and do a front post and, or go sideways? What if it was something like that? That might be very confusing, and that is a more advanced pattern, but that might be very confusing and a little intimidating, and it might chip away your confidence a little bit. So for those of us who have been reading patterns for a while, that means that I guarantee you that means that we're older than the internet. We're older than Google. We're older than YouTube. We had to read patterns. And so we may still not be as comfortable reading patterns. And I have to tell you, I'm not as comfortable, or I wasn't as comfortable back then reading patterns as I am today because of YouTube and because of the confidence that it has given me by teaching me solidly through all of these different tutorials, the stitches, and that has given me like this light bulb moment in my head about what a single crochet two together is, because you do it so much and they talk about it and they walk you through it. So when you see it written on paper, it's not as intimidating, I promise. So the more you do it, integrate a little bit of pattern reading with a lot of tutorials, and then you have a lot of tutorials and a little bit of pattern reading, and eventually, here we go, they'll come out and be equal. Okay? And so I hope that you have a great day. I hope that maybe you've been able to get a little bit of help from this. Like I said, this is Pattern Reading 101. Maybe in the future we'll go a little bit harder, a little bit deeper with a pattern. Maybe I'll grab out the Fisherman's Ring square pattern and I will walk you through how it was written, because I guarantee you that one was a tricky one for me and I had to do it, and I had to keep frogging until I got it right. So yeah, it happens. And it happens to the best of us. And so don't beat yourself up if you have trouble or challenges in reading patterns. It just means that you need to try again. That's all it means. So I would like to wish you a good day and stay safe, be kind, and get hooking. And don't be afraid to pick up a pattern. Until tomorrow, see you later.